They called Earth a death world. Category 5. That wasn't a nickname. It was an official classification from the Galactic Environmental Stability Commission. The label came with thick data packets, warnings in every known language, and a strong suggestion to avoid any contact with its native species. Our atmosphere fluctuated wildly. Our oceans boiled and froze within the same millennium. Our ecosystems evolved through extinction events, and our apex predators included microscopic viruses and storm systems the size of continents. And yet, we endured. The first time I stepped onto an alien space station, I felt the stares. Not open hostility. No one was stupid enough for that. But caution. Fear wrapped in diplomatic courtesy. I was the only human in the room, wearing a dark navy uniform stitched with Earth's crest and carrying the weight of an entire world's reputation. We weren't seen as warriors or explorers. Not really. We were an anomaly, a glitch in the galactic algorithm. Other species had evolved under warm suns and peaceful skies, guided by social harmony and environmental balance. We had clawed our way out of the ice, through famine, plague, and self-inflicted extinction scenarios. We had looked into the void and built rockets to punch through it. Even now, I can remember how quiet the station was when I arrived. Clean. Too clean. The recycled air didn't carry the smell of metal and sweat and oil like the docks back on Mars. I could tell the locals were watching me through the walls, their retinal sensors picking up every twitch in my gait. I kept my expression neutral. Professional. Just another envoy from a world no one really wanted to talk to. The council's chambers were worse. Sterile ivory walls, floating seats, species that looked like walking mushrooms and crystalline serpents, all talking about trade routes and resource treaties as if the galaxy wasn't on the edge of collapse. I was there to observe, learn, show them that Earth had evolved past its primitive aggression. But I saw their smirks. I heard the mutters when they thought we couldn't hear. Savages. Deathworlders. Brutes wrapped in synthetics. They didn't know what it meant to wrestle life from a planet that wanted you dead every second of every day. They didn't understand what it took to build civilization when the land beneath your feet might swallow you whole. They thought we were reckless because we didn't flinch from risk, that we were violent because we refused to forget how we got here. And yet, despite their doubts, they needed us. Our tech, our resilience, our stubborn refusal to die. So we waited as they dismissed our warnings, laughed at our contingency plans, voted down our motions to fund defensive coalitions. And when the sky darkened and the Kurutai came, those elegant monsters from the far edge of the dark, we didn't panic. We remembered who we were. We were the species that survived the impossible. We came from a world that killed everything except us. The first signs were subtle. Trade signals dropping off. Patrol ships failing to report back. Then came the refugees, scattered, broken, silent. Entire freighter crews catatonic with shock, eyes wide, lips trembling, unable to describe what they'd seen. The council thought it was a fringe pirate syndicate. They always thought that. Everything dangerous had to be explainable, manageable, diplomatic. But I'd seen their sensor logs. I'd read the black box data. I knew something worse was coming. Then the Kurutai hit New Alexandria. It was a human colony, one of our most advanced. Built on the edge of the frontier, in council-recognized territory, meant to show our integration into galactic civilization. We constructed gleaming towers, harmonized infrastructure, and even adopted local architectural styles to make our neighbors more comfortable. It was supposed to be peaceful. It lasted 12 minutes. I was stationed there at the time, part of a peacekeeping rotation. My role was symbolic more than anything. A human officer in a human-built colony, surrounded by council-appointed liaisons who spent more time sipping imported nectar than monitoring defense arrays. The morning they arrived, I was drinking tea with my sister on the skydeck. Her daughter, Ellie, was playing with a little hover drone, laughing. Free. Then the skies split open. No warning. No declaration. Just silence, and then darkness. A single ship, long, angular, and silent. It didn't broadcast. It didn't hail. It just hovered, and then it began to erase us. Buildings folded in on themselves. People evaporated mid-run. Weapons systems didn't engage. They were offline before we could scream. I tried to reach Central Command, but my comms were dead. I remember the look in my sister's eyes when the first beam cut through the city. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just held Ellie tight and said, "Run." I didn't make it back to them. I fought my way across half the city, dodging collapsed towers and automated defense drones fried by whatever EMP nightmare the Kurutai had unleashed. When I finally reached the residential core, it was just smoke. Ash. A crater where my family had been. We fought back with what little we had. Ground squads, old orbital cannons, converted mining drones. We even tried physical detonation, sacrificing entire buildings as improvised bombs. None of it mattered. Their hulls bent light. Their drones moved like whispers. When the evacuation order came, only 7 ships were functional. Of those, made it out. 30,000 souls. Scientists, engineers, children. Gone. The Kurutai didn't take trophies. They didn't issue ultimatums. They didn't even linger. Once the colony was dust, they vanished, back into the void like they'd never been there. That was the moment Earth changed. We had always been pragmatic, resilient. We fought when we had to. But now something ancient inside us cracked open. We weren't seeking justice. We weren't defending borders. We were making a promise. To them, to the galaxy, to ourselves. Never again. The Council wasted no time doing what it always did, talking. Emergency summits, condemnations, hollow resolutions. They held sessions under golden domes on floating cities, arguing about sanctions and containment while ashes still drifted from the ruins of New Alexandria. I watched those feeds from a command post deep beneath the surface of Luna and felt nothing but contempt. 30,000 people vaporized, and they were still pretending words could hold back the dark. Earth didn't wait. We mobilized. The Mars shipyards came alive first. You could see them glowing in orbit, whole rings of fire and steel spinning like angry halos. Then came the colonies, Venus, Europa, Titan, firing up old war foundries mothballed since the last Civil War. We didn't broadcast our intent. There were no speeches, no declarations, just cold, efficient silence. Humanity had entered war mode. My reassignment came in the middle of the night. No ceremony, just a data chip with my orders and a ship waiting on Pad 4. The Spear of Helios. A dreadnought straight from the Arcforge Initiative, one of the few projects Earth had never shared with the Council. Classified, overpowered, beautiful. She was black from nose to tail, etched with heat-resistant plating and armored hulls laced with neutronium strands. Every inch of her bristled with weaponry the galaxy had banned centuries ago. Graviton lances, magneto-disruptors, singularity torpedoes. But it wasn't the weapons that made her special. It was the intent. The spear wasn't built to conquer. She was built to end wars. Decisively. I stepped aboard and was greeted by silence. No honor guards. No salutes. Just crew members with hollow eyes and hard jaws, all handpicked from Earth's deadliest regiments. They didn't smile. Neither did I. In the war room, I met Admiral Riker. He didn't bother standing, just slid a data slate toward me. "These are your targets," he said. "Confirm Kurutai fleet paths. Potential hive ships. We move in 3 days." I glanced at the projections. Dozens of systems. Half of them already labeled compromised. The others soon to be. I looked him in the eye. "We're not waiting for Council approval." He laughed, dry and bitter. "Council approval? They're still drafting a strongly worded letter. We're going to remind them what a death world species does when it's pushed too far." I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid. Because I wasn't. Something inside me had shifted after New Alexandria. Not broken, sharpened. All the layers of diplomacy and restraint I'd built over years of training were gone. What remained was simpler, purer. We weren't retaliating. We were hunting. And if the galaxy didn't understand that yet, they would soon. Hashtag Prime was already lost by the time we arrived. The planet's surface looked like black glass, seared from orbit until nothing living remained. Forests turned to ash. Oceans boiled away. Even the cities had been flattened. No debris, no corpses, just smooth craters where millions had lived. The Korutai didn't invade. They didn't conquer. They erased. Our fleet emerged from slip space in a tight formation, weapons hot, shields humming with charged fury. The Spear of Helios led the line, flanked by 6 cruisers and a dozen frigates. From the command deck, I could see the remains of the planetary defense grid, shattered satellites, and dead drones floating like silent witnesses in orbit. The Korutai had left nothing standing, and yet they were still here. We didn't detect them immediately. Their ships didn't emit signals. No heat, no EM signatures, no comms. But our recon drones picked up something, a faint gravitational ripple near the third moon. That's when the flagship uncloaked. It wasn't just a ship. It was a shape pulled from Nightmare. Massive, jagged, coated in shifting black alloy that bent light around it like a cloak. Its silhouette reminded me of an ancient harpoon, barbed and cruel. And it moved, slow, deliberate, alive. No escort. It didn't need one. We moved in. The opening salvo came from a spear. A graviton lance, focused and silent, slicing through space and slamming into the enemy's outer hull. It didn't even scratch the surface. Then the Korutai responded. The first strike hit our forward frigate, Horizon's End. One moment it was there, ready shielded. The next it folded in on itself, crushed like a tin can under impossible pressure. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Engage at full capacity, Admiral Riker ordered. No holding back. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a storm. Our weapons flared to life. Railguns, antimatter bursts, singularity torpedoes. But the Korutai flagship adapted. It didn't dodge. It shifted. Panels along its body reconfigured mid-combat, redirecting force, bending trajectories. Our best shots barely left a dent. I led the boarding squad. It was madness, I know, but we had to understand what we were facing, and I volunteered before anyone else could stop me. I'd lost too much to let someone else go first. We breached through a weakened node along the dorsal hull, and for the first time, I stepped inside a Korutai vessel. It wasn't mechanical. It was organic. Living metal pulsed underfoot. The walls hummed with a low, bone-deep vibration. And in the central chamber, I found it, a core suspended in a field of distorted time. And voices. Hundreds of them. No words, just raw emotion. Pain. Grief. Rage. They weren't machines. They were survivors. A species that had once been wiped out by the old powers of the galaxy, left to die, forgotten. They rebuilt themselves not to conquer, but to prevent their own extinction. Never again. I understood that. Too well. The flagship went down in fire and silence. We detonated a localized singularity charge in its core. One of the few weapons brutal enough to bypass their shifting armor and overloaded field dampeners. Even then, it didn't die easy. The whole thing twisted as it burned, metal shrieking in frequencies that made blood vessels rupture in the less prepared. But it died. Finally, the silence afterward wasn't victory. It was mourning. Ours and theirs. In the hours that followed, the galaxy stirred. Systems lit up with council broadcasts hailing our fleet. Some celebrated us. Some condemned us. Most just begged us to stop. But Earth didn't respond. We didn't need the council's blessing anymore. They'd failed to protect New Alexandria. They'd failed to stop the Korutai. And now, with one decisive strike, humanity had succeeded where their endless diplomacy had collapsed. Admiral Riker gathered us in the main war room 2 hours after the battle. The atmosphere was tense, shoulders rigid, eyes cold. "They're talking peace," he said without preamble. "The Korutai have transmitted a message. First time on record." That alone made everyone pause. For a species that had committed 1,000 silent genocides, any form of communication was a seismic shift. Riker tapped the console, and the transmission played. A voice, filtered and distorted, came through. Not mechanical, not even alien in the way we expected. It was old, deep, worn ragged by time and trauma. "We were erased once," it said, "by those who called themselves civilized. We exist to prevent the repetition. This is not conquest. This is preemption." Then silence. The room stayed frozen for a long time. No one breathed. No one moved. They want understanding, Riker finally said. They want to explain. Someone scoffed. After they wiped out a dozen worlds? After New Alexandria? They're survivors, I said, voice low. Just like us. Heads turned. I didn't flinch. They're what we could have become if Earth hadn't rebuilt after the cataclysms. If we'd been forced into exile. If all we had left was the memory of extinction. No one argued, because deep down, they all knew I was right. But understanding didn't mean forgiveness. Orders were given. The fleet moved out again, this time faster, more focused. The goal wasn't containment anymore. It was elimination. And the Council, despite its protests, stood aside. Publicly, they condemned our aggression. Privately, they begged us to protect their borders. Every system we entered lit up with evacuation alerts. Not because of the Kurutai. Because of us. The galaxy had feared the Kurutai. Now they feared Earth more. And honestly, that suited most of our commanders just fine. We weren't just retaliating now. We were burning through the stars with a purpose so deeply etched into our bones that it overrode everything else. We remembered every child turned to ash, every city erased, every signal lost to static. And we would make damn sure the galaxy remembered too. Kylex 4 was supposed to be off limits, a neutral planet under Council protection, designated a sanctuary world. It held no military value, no industry, just refugees, millions of them, fleeing from both sides of the war. Families, children, the wounded, the forgotten. The Council said it was a line no one would cross. Earth never agreed to that line. I remember the drop. The atmosphere thick with dust. Fires already raging from skirmishes on the outskirts. We'd picked up a Kurutai signal hours earlier. Faint, scattered, inconsistent. High Command flagged it as a threat. Orders came down fast. Eliminate all Kurutai presence. Secure the zone. Sterilize if necessary. Sterilize. We didn't ask questions anymore. We followed protocols. We convinced ourselves it was justified, that the risk of another massacre outweighed everything else. My boots hit the soil near a shattered settlement. Burned out domes. Cracked solar panels. I moved in with my squad. Hard, quiet, lethal. But something felt off. There were no defenders. No drones. Just people. A young Darnethi boy, maybe 8 years old in his species cycles, stepped out of a collapsed shelter. His eyes were too big, too hollow. He didn't run. He didn't scream. He just stood there, clutching a half-burned toy in his claws, staring at me like I was the monster. Because I was. That's when the shots started. Automatic fire from a nearby ridge. One of our men went down. Return fire tore the hillside apart. We advanced, flanking, clearing tunnels. Standard tactics. It wasn't until we breached the makeshift command center that we realized who we were killing. They weren't Kurutai. They were technicians. Engineers. A few had implants. Yes, but biological ones, crude, salvaged. And in the middle of it all, crouched beside a humming generator, was a Kurutai male. Not armored. Not enhanced. Just a man. A father, judging by the way he shielded 2 trembling juveniles behind him. He didn't attack. Didn't even speak. Just looked at me with a kind of quiet desperation I hadn't seen since New Alexandria. It hit me like a gut punch. Not all of them were warriors. Not all of them were monsters. I lowered my weapon. My squad didn't. I ordered them to stand down. They hesitated. One of them asked if I'd gone soft. I repeated the order, voice hard. They obeyed, but I could feel the doubt radiating off them. I pulled the data core from the generator. It was a repair log. They'd been fixing water purifiers, power cells, medical relays. This wasn't a forward base. It was a refugee camp, and we had brought war to its doorstep. Later, I filed a false report. Minimal enemy presence, systems neutralized, zone secured. But I couldn't shake the image of that child's eyes, or the quiet way the Kurutai man bowed his head, accepting death before it came. That night, I sat alone in the gunship and realized something horrifying. We weren't winning the war. We were becoming the thing we swore to destroy. I broadcast from what was left of New Alexandria, a shattered husk in a dead orbit around a burned world. The ruins drifted in silence, jagged fragments of steel and glass suspended in the void like broken teeth. The council had abandoned it. Earth had written it off. But I returned, not for glory, not for revenge, but because it was the only place that still felt honest. The pain here was real, untouched, and it was time someone spoke from the ashes. I linked into the emergency relay grid. It was old tech, mostly forgotten, but it still worked. I tied it to every frequency I could reach, council nets, human military bands, even pirate frequencies. If it carried signal, it carried my voice. This is Commander Elias Ward, formerly of the Spear of Helios. I began. If you're hearing this, you already know what we've done. I didn't try to justify it. There were no justifications left. Only truth. We've scorched 37 systems in 6 months. Burned colonies, bombed asteroids, glassed whole moons to deny Kurutai hiding spots. We've saved some lives, but we've taken far more. Some of them weren't enemies. Some were just trying to live. I paused, staring out the viewport at the twisted skeletons of towers that once scraped the sky. A child's toy drifted past, tethered to nothing. I stood in a refugee camp on Kylex 4. I looked into the eyes of the people we were supposed to protect, and I realized we crossed a line. Not just tactically, not just politically, morally. We became the fear the Kurutai once were. We became what we hated. There was silence across the channel, but I knew they were listening. Soldiers, civilians, admirals, Kurutai, all of them. I let the words settle before I spoke again. Earth survived because we never forgot how to fight. But that's not what makes us strong. It's what makes us dangerous. And right now, we are too dangerous, not just to the enemy, to everyone. I uploaded every classified file I had, combat logs, helmet feeds, satellite footage from Kylex 4. I left nothing out. No edits, no spin, just raw evidence of the cost. Then I said the words I never thought I would. I'm laying down arms. I will not participate in another slaughter disguised as strategy. If humanity has a future in this galaxy, it starts with restraint, not rage. And finally, I gave them what they needed to hear. We are from a death world. We learn to live through fire, through famine, through fury. But now we must learn to stop, or we will burn the galaxy down trying to save it. That message echoed for days. Admirals denounced me. The council summoned tribunals. My name was branded traitor and savior in equal measure. But something changed. Ships began pulling back. Peace talks resumed. And on a new monument orbiting the ruins of New Alexandria, carved into obsidian glass, were just 2 words. Never again.